The uncivilized state of our politics.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Ann Fisher, host of All Sides with Ann Fisher on WOSU 820. William Hershey, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News. Bob Clegg, Republican strategist. And Michael Daniels, co-publisher of Outlook Media.
Welcome to this special edition of Columbus on the Record. We'll take a step back from the weekly grind to look at what seems to be an increasing amount of nastiness in politics here in Ohio and across the country. Of course, Democrats and Republicans have always been rivals, but in the last 10 years or so, it seems to have gone from a friendly rivalry to a nasty rivalry with name-calling, deep personal animosity, no middle ground, and no compromise. Bill Hershey, you've covered politics in Washington and Columbus for a number of years. Has it ever been this bad before, or is this similar to other eras?
I think it's bad, but I think it has been bad in previous times. But we didn't have the 24/7 news cycle before, and we didn't have the internet. And this magnifies. Things travel at rapid speed now. You know, I might say John Kerry is a traitor, not a hero of the Vietnam War, and it used to maybe take a day for that to get out there. If you started something like that now, it'd be all over the world in 30 seconds. And I think that those things play on each other and make things worse. I mean, we were talking before the show, there used to be canings of people and duels fought. Now that's not very civil.
That's acrimony. Yeah, and not only is it on in 30 seconds, it's on. It'll be on for another 300 years. I mean, it doesn't go away. Once it's on the internet, it rarely goes away.
Well, and I think that you're talking about how long things can be on. I think also the fact that we used to have an election day, and we now have an election month and a half in most states. And so where we used to be spared, all of those ads would come flying at us over the course of 7 or 8 days. Now they start 75 days before the election, and we're subject to them over and over and over because you don't know who's voted early, you don't know whether they've seen your ad or not, so then you just keep plugging.
Is it as bad us away from the cameras, out of the public's eye? I mean, do these folks get along, or they really do not get along, Bob, in your experience?
I think they get along more than you would think, but I don't think they get along as much as they did maybe 20 years ago. I worked in the legislature back then, and it seemed like they had more interaction with each other afterwards, and they would go away to the Galleria and have drinks together. I don't see that happening as much now. I think part of that though might be because of term limits. You just aren't here that long anymore. And I think that's been part of the impact on the relationship building or lack thereof.
And when they went drinking together, they didn't just go drinking together; they were drinking buddies. Some of them, they were close friends,
and they did a lot of work.
It wasn't just cordial; they got a lot of work done.
They got a lot of work done away from the State House, and now it doesn't work that way.
I think there's also kind of a blurring of the line these days between what's a personal demonization and what's a policy demonization. You think of some of these ads where they had Chinese flags flying. Now that's a public policy question, I guess, but to make it seem like someone is subservient to a foreign country, that's kind of personal also. And I defer to the consultant here if that's on purpose, but
no, I mean, but once again, I like to make that distinction between a policy issue, which that is, versus a personal character issue, which I think that gets more into the negative when you're starting to talk about a person and their personal life or their character or something like that.
But I think the Chinese flag is a good example where you can take a policy issue, and when you fly that red flag, you can make it personal that way, where it could have been just a decision based on policy. It's reflecting now character.
I think we saw that in a variety of different things this year, where if you had just made a statement about Ann Fisher voted against X, that would be one thing. But when you say Ann Fisher voted against X and you put a picture of massacred puppies or something up behind Ann Fisher, that's totally different. It really.
Or when you say Ann Fisher.
Right.
Speaking of massacred puppies, the place where much of this nastiness occurs is on television in those negative ads, those grainy, black and white images, foreboding announcers, quotes and votes taken out of context. And here are a couple of the worst from 2010. Thankfully, we didn't see them here in Ohio.
Shame on Bill Brady. I am a Republican, but I don't support him for the mass euthanization of animals.
I'm a pretty staunch Republican. I will not be voting for Bill Brady. That's sick and wrong. I cannot go with my party on that issue.
I'm Sharon Angle, and I approve this message.
Want to know just how out of touch Harry Reid is? Spending $787 billion on a stimulus that failed is a start. Or Reid voting to give illegal aliens special tax breaks and Social Security benefits is another big clue. But here's the kicker. Reid actually voted to use taxpayer dollars to pay for Viagra, for convicted child molesters and sex offenders. What else could you ever need to know about Harry Reid?
Well, what else you need to know is that Harry Reid actually won. But in the other ad, Pat Quinn beat Bill Davis in that race for Illinois governor. Bob Clegg, you've helped candidates place the ads on TV and radio, so you're not in the creative side. Have you ever seen an ad, without getting into specifics, ever seen an ad that really made you cringe in your career?
Sure. I mean, yeah, you cringe and you wonder, is that going to work? And it works enough times that people want to do it. I mean, and once again, you know, that first one, even the second one with Harry Reid, I mean, sure, the way they're presenting it maybe gets to them as personal character issues, but they really are discussing, you know, policy issues in those ads. Even the first one with the killing of the dogs.
They really are, and it's really important, but it's so really out of context that it's ridiculous. So, I mean, but the bottom line is it works, and so it ultimately is up to the voters to decide. Am I going to do a little more research? Am I going to dig a little deeper? If they don't start doing that, these will continue.
But did the Sharon Angle ad in particular work? Because there are a lot of Hispanic voters in Nevada. They saw that ad as them being portrayed as thugs.
Right.
She lost that vote big time. So there's a chance they could backfire.
I think there is a chance they can backfire. And I think the thing that we have to remember is that negative ads aren't designed to target the base on either side. You know, they're designed to target that voter who is completely undecided, and you're just basically, you're not trying to woo them to your side, you're trying to scare them away from the other. And so I think there was a point at which Sharon Angle probably realized that she'd lost the Latino vote anyway, so she had nothing to lose by going ahead and running that. And I think that sometimes also becomes part of the problem, that races that are either really, really tight or not tight at all is where you start to see all this kind of thing. But Angle had nothing to lose in this race.
Mm-hmm. Do people really, I mean, it probably was a part of a bill that Harry Reid voted for that gave Viagra to inmates in prison. And
it was probably an unintended consequence.
Do people see that and say, do they really believe that?
I think the casual voter might, if he or she was predisposed to think that way anyway. The reason I say that is based on some of the internet things that are forwarded to me. President Obama saluting the flag on the wrong side. And you tell people it's not so, but they want to think something bad about him or about Harry Reid. By God, that ad just shows that that's right, and boy, I'm glad I saw that.
How about the outside groups? We've seen that really, well, the big one was Swift boating with John Kerry was the first real impactful outside group ad. They make the situation worse? They never do positive ads. It seems.
No, I mean, well, outside groups I think feel a little bit more, they have more freedom. I think they have more freedom because they're really, the backlash that you may have with an ad really isn't there when it's an outside group doing it. Sure, they try to go after the candidate who is being helped by that ad, but when there's no connection there, that candidate can say, please take it off, and that group can do whatever they want.
And it's kind of a conditioned anonymity for these groups. I mean, they have these nice-sounding names, but they can say pretty much whatever they want without a direct consequence to the candidate.
And again, unless the voters are willing to look it up and figure out who this group is, the euphemism that they attach to themselves, is what's going to stick.
And but that's a really funny thing about the electorate, because people really do know whether those ads are being run. If there was some, Strickland is a horrible person ad that was running, people knew which ones were sponsored by Kasich and which ones were not. And Kasich, in this particular race, candidates don't seem to get tagged with the backlash, like you said. So you can have a third-party group out there that can say pretty much anything they want, and there is no backlash. It doesn't come back.
In the federal ads for Congress and for Senate and for President, the candidate has to say, "I'm Barack Obama and I approve this message." Right. But that doesn't have. That was the goal, was to try to link them directly to a negative ad. But it doesn't seem to have softened the ads at all.
No, what they're doing is they're putting that either in the beginning, usually in the beginning. You want to get that out of the way before you really start slamming. Yeah. So what they're doing is they're putting it at the beginning of the ad, and then the rest of the ad just slams away. Yeah. So I don't think it's doing what they thought it was going to do.
Just visually and auditorially, it's so different from what the ad is. Sometimes, particularly with that Sharon Angle ad that we just watched, you don't even really get at first that goes with what's coming next.
Right.
It doesn't.
We have to end this segment with one more ad. It's not just Americans who are doing negative advertising. Take a look at this.
Sam Cates. He's been mayor of Winnipeg for 6 years. What has he accomplished? He's waffled on rapid transit and made countless promises that are just unreasonable for a city like Winnipeg. Sam Cates. He kicks children in the face. Paid for by concerned pediatric orthodontists.
Is that for real? That's what I wanted to ask.
Apparently, he lost, not the mayor, but the challenger who concerned pediatrics or orthodontics. So, not just down here.
No.
All right, let's get to our next one. Unpaid television is also fueling the partisanship. It started with conservative talk radio, and the expansion of cable news has arrived. Now more and more far-right and far-left commentators have a platform to criticize their opponents. All the while, the number of very partisan and very popular websites and blogs has exploded. Ann Fisher, how much can we blame Fox News and MSNBC for this divided country?
Well, I'm pretty true to this, and I have been for years. You can blame them all you want, but the bottom line is it's up to the electorate to educate themselves, and it always has been. And they're only patterning, a method on what's gone before. They're just expanding. They're just extrapolating on something that was going on before via the ads and dragging out. We say, you said earlier that it's expanded. The election season's expanded to a month and a half or whatever. Well, now we've expanded it to, I say, not only 24/7, but 24/7, 365 days a year.
I don't like using the word blame. This may be kind of reflecting my blue collar or whatever you want. It's sort of elitist to me. I mean, I'm for the First Amendment. I don't like Hannity. I don't like Olbermann. But I think people should be able to say whatever they want to. I don't watch it. And if that has an audience, I mean, that's the technology we have now. It's there, and it's being exploited. It's not in a good way, I don't think, but let them all talk. I don't care.
Ted Koppel calls Bill O'Reilly and Keith Olbermann the death of news, which is a pretty strong statement, but I don't consider Bill O'Reilly and Keith Olbermann news people.
Neither do they.
That's because you're a news person.
But they don't either. Yeah. Olbermann and Riley will tell you they're not news people. Rush Limbaugh never claimed to be an unbiased radio news commentator. Similarly, but even here,
Fox News' tag is Fox News, fair and balanced.
Well, it's MSNBC. There's the word news in there somewhere too. Yeah. But I think that realize what it is, and I think that there are some of us who just come out and blatantly and just say it. Outlook has never claimed to be unbiased.
Well, let's wait a minute, a little bit. Ted Koppel was great. He did great things, but I think sometimes he's a bit pompous. Didn't he realize that newspapers used to start wars by the kind of coverage they had? We just have a more fast-moving medium now.
And newspapers endorse candidates.
Newspapers started because of conflict.
Yeah. I mean, so...
social media and the blogs, we talked about it just briefly earlier, that things just fly so fast.
I think all of this is reflecting the people. I really do. I think people, and this is good. I mean, we've had a lot of people now getting involved, being more aware, getting involved in politics. They can go online themselves as private citizens, put things out there. They are. And there are a lot of, and usually it's the very committed people, so you're going to get very strong viewpoints from both sides. And I think we're just, I mean, the media is just reflecting what's going on out there.
How about pigeonholing